We're making it through 2020. That's a funny thing for me to say, right? But we are making it through 2020. We're actually freaking doing it, you guys. 17 days left. Now, if you guys are anything like me, I've got a little bit of the F-its this week. A little bit of like, I don't wanna. I just want to sit around and watch Christmas movies, or I just want to sit around and do nothing, or oh my God, can we not call it a year yet? Can we not just be done? If you guys are like me, I found myself playing a little bit of solitaire on my computer lately, which is a little bit weird because I don't do stuff like that, but I have been. It's been a little wacky. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little weird. But so as I've been doing that, I was like, what do I actually need? Like, why am I doing this? And if you guys ever find yourselves in your business kind of wondering like, why am I not more motivated? Like, what is going on that I'm not more excited? I'm not more into this. Like, what's happening? And a lot of the time it's that we need to rest. It's one of the things I know most people are like, because I'm known as the kick-ass business mentor, right? Because I kick your ass. She said elegantly. Okay, so there's that piece of it, but there's more to it than that, right? And that is that kicking ass means you know when to pull back too. It means you know when to replenish your energy so that you can keep going. And so people get surprised when I say things like, do you need to rest? They're like, I thought you were the lady who pushes me through. And I'm like, I can't push you through if you're dead. So this weekend I don't know if you guys know this about me. Some of you know, I'm like a major old movie lover, right? Like I love old movies. And given all of the social change this year, my family and I thought it would be really interesting to watch Gone with the Wind, right? Because it's about a civilization, if you could call it that, right? A society that was built on murder and slavery, right? And it is now gone with the wind. Isn't it interesting how we can look back, and since we're at the end of the year, I want to help you guys look back and relax a little bit. And looking back, how we can see what was okay by society, what was okay by Hollywood standard, what was okay by our standards, how the slaves are represented in that, very Hollywood, improper English, goofy. They're not quite with that kind of crap that happened all those years in those movies. And we were watching that and it was so interesting. One, for my kids to see it, right? And they were like, this was okay. I'm like, not only was it okay, it won the Oscar. It won like 8 out of the 11 Oscars at the time or whatever, right? Just looking at that and how important it is that we do look back. And this is one of the things I want to talk to you guys about today. How important it is that we do look back so that we can reflect on how far we've come. Yes, that's part of it, but also for us to look at what was acceptable to us that is no longer acceptable. And this year laid bare, obviously, our social injustice, right? And what's going on with our racial tensions and our understanding of what race means in this country. And also, you guys know me, I'm also bringing what sexism means inside that conversation. So watching this movie was just absolutely fascinating. And of all the different things we took from it, which could be all of Coffee with Coach and then some, right? I mean, so much to take from that movie from a sexism standpoint, right? To the South and the cultural norms that were revered and sort of romanticized through the film, and how important it is that we talk about that and that what it was actually built on, right? All the pretty and the manners and the beauty that was built on slavery, and all of the injustice that came with that. But there was the one scene, and I think it's right before the intermission, right before she does her famous, "As God is my witness, I will never go hungry again," right? Like that scene. She had driven all night in a horse and buggy, right? And they get finally to her house and she starts whipping the horse to get it over the final threshold, and the horse drops dead. And so, yes, there's so much that we can talk about, but as your coach this morning, towards the end of a really mind-breaking, literally year, the dead horse. I want to talk about the dead horse. Yes, there's so much we can cover. Please know that me choosing to talk about the dead horse does not mean I think it's more important than all of the other things that there are to discuss inside that movie. That is not so. However, the dead horse is important because, you guys, we're right at the threshold of this year. Okay? And I don't want you dropping dead. And by dropping dead, I don't mean literally, right? I mean dropping your projects. I mean giving up on the last little bit because it doesn't matter, right? All of those moments forward that you can put yourself to, is how could I say that differently? All of the things that you could give your attention to towards the end of this year, they're all important. They're just as important now as they will be at 12:01 on January 1st, right? And I don't like that false paradigm anyway. This is about you opening up now in a gentle way towards the end of this year, because we don't want to whip you to the point that you're like, dude, I'm out, because that doesn't serve you. And that's one of the big lessons I can't wait to give you guys the last podcast episode of this year. And I can't believe it's number 52. It's like rounded out the perfect 52 weeks of a year, right? But anyway, it's to talk about all the lessons learned. And I really want to thank everybody who wrote in and contributed to that final episode. I'm so excited to share your thoughts about your biggest takeaways from this year as well. But one of them that I really want to help you take away is to rest. And that does not mean don't work. Yeah? And if you don't want to work, don't work. By all means, I don't mean that. But it doesn't mean don't work. It means rest. I was doing my workout this morning. It was super hard. Mondays are always hard. We do leg days on Mondays. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my God. And I was like, I just did not sleep right. I know it. I know I'm not my best right now because I didn't sleep. And I did fine, right? But I could feel. Sure enough, I picked up my app. I'm finally using the Fitbit to track my sleep at night. And I was like, oh, I bombed it last night. It was just not a good night's sleep, right? I didn't rest well. So I couldn't be as strong during the day as I wanted to be this morning so far, right? Same idea. Because you can't keep pushing while numbing out. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, don't be the horse that drops dead. Okay? That is the problem with horses. I don't know if you guys know this, right? This is why people they fight with mules, but mules live. They stop. When they're exhausted, they stop. That's the whole thing, stubborn as a mule. When they're done, they're done. Be a mule, right? They're like, no, we're stopping now because I need to eat and rest. And then they don't drop dead. Horses drop dead. Literally, they drop dead, right? Because they'll just keep going. They'll just keep going because they can't. They go and they're gone. Mules don't, they stop. And that's that whole phrase around that is just stop, take care of yourself. They rest. And they force the rest even when it pisses other people off. So be a mule this week, okay? Listen to your body, listen to yourself, take care of yourself so that you can continue to work through the end of the year. So that was number one that I took away from watching Gone with the Wind this weekend. Yes. So I promised you in your notes, right? So what is the one thing that you can do today to feel both more relaxed and energized? So I don't know if you guys are tea drinkers. Those of you that were in my mastermind last year, I send you my favorite tea. So I have a cinnamon tea that I've found. If you'd like to know what it is, I'm happy to tell you. It's by Harry and Sons, and you can usually only get it on Amazon, or sometimes you can get it at the Starbucks that are inside Barnes and Nobles. Not regular Starbucks, just the Starbucks that are inside Barnes and Nobles. Why? I don't know. There's some sort of franchise agreement there. But anyway, it's called Hot Cinnamon Sunrise. It is redonkulous. It is so good. Anyway, so what I'd like you to do today to feel both relaxed and energized, if you have a project, if you have a phone call, if you have year-end emails you're trying to write for your business or wrap up, or PR you're reaching out for, or you're trying to hire somebody for your team, or you need to let somebody go on your team, right? Or you need to do your taxes. You need to start getting your financial affairs in order for the end of 2020. What I would just encourage you to do today, number one, do the hardest, most obnoxious, most yucky task first, because then you'll feel amazing all day. So yes, you have my permission to do that first. But before you do that, I would invite you to get a great cup of tea, a great cup of coffee. Like if you love fresh mint tea, get that. If you just like hot lemon water, get that. But get something warm and nourishing, preferably just a drink, not food, okay, so that your mind can stay sharp, because once you eat, the blood kind of leaves your brain a little bit. I want you to get a timer for 1 minute. Just 1 minute. You have it on your phone, you can have it on an egg timer, whatever. 1 minute. Just sit there with that beautiful drink, whatever it is, and just for 1 minute, you are not allowed to do anything, but just relish the moment. It's literally to savor that one moment, literally just one moment. And this is an exercise that is twofold. One, it will blow your mind how long a minute is. It really will. And you'll be like, wow, I could be doing a lot right now. You're not allowed to do anything. And just savor that one special thing you're giving yourself. Enjoy it for 1 minute, just 1 minute. And then get on to your hardest task, okay? Because then you'll feel both relaxed and energized at the same time. Okay, awesome, deal? All right, so how can you feel more connected to people this week? This is a big one. I know particularly one of my children is really feeling that this year, like not being able to be with friends, not being able to go out. Holiday celebrations of all kinds just look different this year because we can't really be together. We were watching White Christmas last night. Yeah, I told you we're movie buffs, right? So Gone with the Wind was Saturday as we were preparing our cookies for the cookie bake-off. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, you saw the news there. So that was all day Saturday. We were running around, we were cleaning the house, we were wrapping presents, doing that kind of stuff. And then last night, to wrap up the weekend, we were watching White Christmas. And at the very end, they have that beautiful celebration for the general, and all of us were like, people, you remember, we can all be in a room with the people, we can hug, and it was like, we were like so sad. So it just looks different. So how can you feel more connected? So after you spend your 1 minute of time, okay, just sort of savoring, I want you to recognize the one thing I've told you all year long. All year long I've said this, and that is that time is the one resource you cannot get back. And then those of you, I know a lot of you heard me give a lecture this last month on influence, right? And influential people practice a specific skill, and it's called generosity, okay? And how they practice the skill of generosity, it's not necessarily that they go out and buy stuff for people. That could be part of it if you can afford it. Sure, that's great. But for most people, it's time. It is so generous to give your time. And one of the ways that you can do this to truly feel connected to someone else is to write them a handwritten note. Now, I know a lot of you in this group are really, really good at that, but the idea of the handwritten note, especially this year when everybody's online 24/7, is that it takes more time to write out a handwritten note. And what that tells people is that you took the time to sit down and write that extra note. And that matters. It really matters to people. So that's one way you can feel more connected. And what I would do specifically is not just, hey, so happy to know you, happy new year, so great getting to know you this year, something like that. Like, don't be generic. My advice for you to be one specific thing. What's one specific thing you watched them do this year? What's one specific thing you took away from what they did? Or what's one specific thing you miss about them? I love the way that I love the way you fold pillowcases. I love the way you make your coffee in the morning. I love the way you giggle when I make you laugh. Like those sorts of things that really let you feel connected to somebody else. So that's something else I would urge you to do this week, especially if you have the ethics or the, oh, it doesn't matter, there's only 17 days left, that kind of a thing. There's an opportunity for you here to bring the best of you to these last few days. And this is one of the ways you can do that, is really connect with other people, yeah? All right, so now this is number 3 today for Coffee with Coach, okay, you guys? So we've talked about taking your 1 minute to savor and really notice how long a minute is. Those of you who've been in live workshops with me, when we talk about productivity, I'm like, do nothing for 1 minute. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, a minute is so long, right? So enjoy that. And then move on to your hardest task today. Get that done right out of the gate, right after Coffee with Coach, just get it done. Then we talked about how you could be more connected to other people, handwritten notes with specifics. And then number 3, why the life that you really want is hidden inside your ability or inability to listen. This is a skill that we've lost this year specifically. There's many reasons for that. It was drinking from a fire hose all year long, right? There was so much information coming at us all the time that we all sort of started to shut down. But you don't want to do that to the people in your life that are really important to you, and you don't want to do that to your clients or customers, right? It's really important. I was just talking to someone this morning, and she was like, I offer my services, and people go, yeah, that's great, and then they leave. And I'm like, okay. So the piece there, right, is listening for what they're not saying. What are they not saying? Are they saying I can't afford it? And if they're saying I can't afford it, it's that they don't see the value in it yet. Yet being the key word, right? Just happened, a friend of mine launched her merchandise, really expensive stuff, almost sold out. What's going on there, right? What is that? Why is it that something that's really expensive and not necessary sell out when something that's actually quite critical for people doesn't? What's going on there? You guys know the answer after this year, right? I've talked to you about that over and over. Who is it about? It's about them, not about you. And the people who will win that in business are the ones who've learned to listen. Now, I had a great mentor once, she has a spa in the city, and she would talk about how she would sell her facial creams and oils and hair products and all that stuff. Right? She said they would walk in the store and usually never listen to what they said. She listened for what they didn't say, but she would watch their eyes. And she listened through her eyes. Does that make sense? She literally would watch what they looked at. Or she'd look for, if they were limping or holding their bag funny. She's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Do you need a massage? Would you like to try this? Have you tried that? You go after what they need. One of the most incredible saleswomen I've ever seen in my life, by the way. Just unbelievable. And she never oversold, right? And she always gave people exactly what they needed. Why? Because then they're going to come back and get more. If you're overselling and being obnoxious, they're like, get away from me. Right? So it's really listening to what needs to be said out there in the world. Listening for what your customers need that they haven't necessarily asked for, but you know that they need. Again, it's not about what you want to sell them or what you want to say to them. It's about how do they need to hear it so they can actually take it in. And this goes in, we've talked about this a lot through the social movements this year. We've talked about this through the political situations this year and families being divided and those sorts of things. It's about the skill of actually having the other person feel heard. Actually having the experience of getting up from a conversation with you and thinking, oh my God, she got me. Doesn't mean you agree, right? Doesn't mean you make what they said okay if you disagree with it, but you heard it. And you guys, that alone will end most arguments. Do you know that? Do you guys know that? Like, you ever had that experience? Like, God, you're just not hearing me. Really, that kind of feeling? That will stop most arguments. Right there. Oh, I see. You feel like it's this. Do I have that right? That's it. You don't have to make it okay. You don't have to tell them they're right. Do I have your experience right? I will tell you, if you can get this skill down, it will give you the life that you want. And that sounds really grandiose or like some massive promise. I'm not kidding. If you master that skill, people will flock to you because everybody wants to be gotten, right? Like, I just want to feel like they get me, like that feeling. I don't think that that's grammatically correct, but you know what I mean, right? She got me, man. Oh my God, I love being around so-and-so because she gets me. That's the feeling that you want to create. And that is the skill of listening. And I think where some things got collapsed this year, well, it's like, well, if I let them talk, it means I'm agreeing. No. Compassion does not mean agreement. Empathy does not mean agreement. It is simply allowing the human experience of somebody else to be experienced without judgment. And from there, if there's an opening, you can take it. And that, obviously, I'm talking about more of the political, the tough conversations there. But it's the same in selling, right? Like, if somebody hires you to be an interior decorator for their office, and you walk through and start talking about what's important to them in their living room too, you might end up doing their living room too, but you have to listen. They're like, I know to spend times in there. We don't care about that. Okay, not the right room for you to be talking about, right? But if you don't actually hear that, you can't do anything. Make sense? So be open, watch with your eyes, right? Listen through your eyes at what people are actually saying and feeling and experiencing so that you can offer them a solution they're actually looking for, not the one you think they need. And by the way, a lot of the times in marketing copy, I just went through this with a one-on-one client last week. She was like, I'm going crazy. I don't understand. I know this helps people. The results are amazing and I can't get new people to sign up. I said, all right, it's all communication on the sales page. It was all communication. Tell them what they need to hear on this page, and then you give them what they actually need on the back end. Because you know that, because you're the expert there, but they don't know what that is. They don't know what that means. It's second nature to you, but they don't know what you're talking about. That is the skill of listening, right? She listened to, no one's purchasing. That's what you're listening to. But I know the product's great. Okay, so nothing's wrong with the product. Nothing's wrong with my service. I haven't learned this skill yet. Takes a big person to do that. It also takes a very successful person to do that. So the last thing I want to talk to you about today before we wrap up, because I know people are starting to like kind of feel through their goals for next year. And at the same time, you're exhausted. You're like, what goals? I don't want goals. F goals. I hate goals. I hate everything. Right? You gotta have that feeling like no more planning about anything ever. But I feel you on that. I really do. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is what successful people do when they actually start to set goals. Because we do have a new year coming up, right? Like we have all this stuff going on. It's coming in. We've got to kind of be paying attention to it and looking at what we want from this next year. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. Anyone who says they do is lying, right? We don't know fully. We could sort of speculate, but that's not really going to be useful. Really successful people ask themselves what they need internally to have the year be successful. People who set unsuccessful goals year after year after year after year, right, are the ones who look for the external validation. It is the number one mistake people make when setting goals. I need to make X amount of my business. Why? Says who? Why is that a goal for you? Because somebody else did it? Because you see so-and-so doing it? I saw it a lot this year around podcasts. People are like, I want to launch a podcast. I'm like, that's awesome. What are your first 3 episodes? Oh, I don't know. You don't want to launch a podcast. You want to keep up with the Joneses. Make sense? Like, really think it through, you guys. This is about you. You get, it's my tagline at this point, but you get one shot at this life. Don't live somebody else's life, you guys. God, I want to smack everybody who's made that like a Hallmark moment on the front of cards. Make this your life. No. Like, sit with that. As you do your 1 minute of reflection today, sit with that. Are you living someone else's life? Is your goal list for next year filled with shoulds or supposed tos or somebody else's life? Like, is there somebody you're following? You're like, I want that, I want that, I want that. No, create your own. Doesn't mean you can't be inspired by other people. Oh my gosh, please do. Because sometimes when you look at someone else, you go, oh my gosh, that's possible. That's amazing. That's so cool. That's great. But what would that do for you? Or what would it look like if you run it through your own internal systems and create it in your way? Then what does it look like? And how will that bring you joy? And how will that allow you to be fulfilled all throughout the year? Not just right now. Make sense? And it is the number one mistake most people make is they start grabbing at goals they think they're supposed to have. And then they wonder by January 10th, nothing's working. It's because you don't care, because it didn't come from inside of you. That came from you thinking you're supposed to be something you're not. And that is the ultimate in self-betrayal. You are who you are for a reason. You've been given your talents and gifts and expertise and experiences for a reason. They are not to be minimized and diluted through somebody else's life. Please don't dilute your life. Please don't do that. Please, for the love of all things, don't do that to yourself, okay? What you have is gorgeous, and you're allowed to do it your way, not someone else's way that you twist a little bit. I always say to you, break your industry. You don't have to do your world the way everybody else does. In fact, please don't. I'm so sick of it. Everybody's stuff looks the same. Everyone's using the same quotes. It's like, oh dear God, I'm going to stick this pen in my eye. Be who you are. Okay, that's about all I have to say about that. I love you guys to pieces. Thank you for listening to my Gone with the Wind story, all the way through the White Christmas story. Yes, we are old movie buffs, and I just feel there's a lot of lessons to be learned from some of those movies, including important racial conversations and dead horses. Boy, that was a coffee with Coach for the ages, yeah? All right, ladies, I love you. Make this week incredible. Please do take your minute of silence and savoring today and watch what happens. It's a really simple trick. It's free, it's beautiful, and it works. All right? I love you guys. Have a wonderful week. I will see you next week for Coffee with Coach. All right, guys, love you. Bye.